Failures to debunk exposed. 9/11. The term debunk has become quite popular in recent years. The definition, quote, to expose or ridicule the falseness, sham, or exaggerated claims of, end quote. Quite often, however, the claims of debunking are themselves exaggerated, false, and a sham. Failed debunking of 9/11 controlled demolition. For example, one website named MetaBunk claimed to debunk the idea that iron microspheres prove controlled demolition on the 3 buildings which collapsed on 9/11 in New York City. 2 of those buildings were struck by airplanes. 1 was not. The first 2 collapsed at a constantly positive acceleration which approximated 2/3 of perfect freefall. The 3rd building started out at virtually perfect freefall for the first 8 floors and close to 90% of freefall for the remainder of its collapse. The problem with MetaBunk's claim of debunking is that they merely offer 3 alternative explanations of the original claim without ever proving their own alternative hypotheses and without ever disproving the original claim. That's not debunking! This cannot be stated more emphatically. That is logically fallacious thinking, full of logical holes. In order to do righteous debunking, you have to prove an alternative hypothesis or entirely disprove the original claim. Simply stating that Martians did it is not good enough. You have to show evidence that Martians exist and that they were involved. For the full debunking of MetaBunk's failed debunking, see my article, Debunking, a Lost Art, Greater Need for Critical Thinking, at rodmartincriticalthinking.wordpress.com, link in the description. But here are the highlights. MetaBunk suggested that there were 3 possible sources of the iron microspheres: steel wool, iron from rust on the steel beams, and iron rust in the fly ash used in the manufacture of the concrete used to build the 3 buildings. Using the smallest percentage of iron microspheres from various documented samples, there was an estimated 30,352 cubic feet of iron which had been melted and atomized. Remember, this is the minimum estimate. This is 7,453 short tons of iron. This would be a cube of solid iron 31.2 feet on a side, roughly 10 meters. That's as tall as a 3-story building. Steel wool produces large spheres of steel with horns and not iron microspheres. Wrong size, wrong shape, and wrong substance. If steel wool pads were entirely converted to steel spheres, not iron microspheres, mind you, you would need something like 59,624,000 packages of steel wool. Are you starting to see the flaw to MetaBunk's debunking attempt? That amount of steel wool would have taken 80.15% of the entire floor space of the Twin Towers, with 0 room for desks, walls, people, filing cabinets, or potted plants. If iron rust on the steel beams had been the source, we would have needed 10,660 short tons of steel rust to give us the required minimum iron microspheres. The extra weight is because iron rust weighs more than metallic iron. For that much iron rust to have been converted to iron microspheres, virtually all of the rust would have to have been scraped off of the steel beams and funnel through the isolated flames in each of the buildings. But the flames didn't exist after the collapse, and likely not during the collapse either. When did over 21 million pounds of steel rust have time to be scraped and converted? Each building collapsed in a matter of seconds. The iron rust in the fly ash explanation is even more problematic. Most of that iron was incapable of being exposed to flame until after the concrete had been pulverized by some process during the collapse, at which point the flames no longer existed. MetaBunk failed to debunk the original claim because they had a poor idea of what real debunking looks like.
you.